Thank you for listening to the Gateway to the Rockies podcast from Visit Aurora. From the rafters of the Stanley Marketplace, this is the show dedicated to telling the stories of Aurora, Colorado. Hi there, I'm Dave, Senior Marketing Manager for Visit Aurora. Bánh is a Vietnamese term that's often applied to a wide variety of breads, sweet and savory pastries, and goods. Bánh and Butter Bakery Cafe describes themselves as your bread and butter, a necessity to your cravings, your daily routine, and your special events. Whether you're on the go or need a place to slow down to enjoy your pastries with a cup of coffee or tea, Bánh and Butter is your one-stop shop, offering a variety of Asian French-inspired croissants, savory and sweet pastries, and a selection of sandwiches and desserts, coffee, milk teas, and specialty drinks as well. Today, we're joined by the architect of Bánh and Butter Bakery Cafe, Thoa Nguyen, owner/founder/chef at Bánh and Butter Bakery Cafe. Congratulations on your grand opening. It's been, about a month for you?
It's actually, we've only been open for almost 3 weeks.
Has it been the longest 3 weeks of your life?
It's been the longest 3 weeks of my life. I feel like we've been open for 3 months just because the preparation process has been going since end of January all the way through February. So it's exciting.
How has the response been from the community so far?
Oh my goodness. It's nothing but support. And a lot of people kind of get a different vibe of what East Colfax is. It has its own little rap or whatever, but in reality, like, the people that have came in have been so supportive, from customers to the neighborhood, from council members from City of Aurora. Everyone has just been just so supportive, and the people that we meet on a daily basis, we have a lot of regulars already at this point, and everyone's just been so friendly.
I imagine opening a new business is kind of like being a parent. You don't get a lot of sleep at the beginning, I imagine, right?
Oh, barely. I think I haven't had a day off since beginning of February, which is totally fine because I run on adrenaline.
Right. But it's a labor of love, I imagine.
It's a labor of love for sure. I mean, I'm excited to come in every day just to see my team members, see how they're doing. Mm-hmm. They're kind of at the point, they're like, Thoa, when are you going to get a day off? Because they care about me, and I'm just telling them, when we get there, it's fine. I just want to make sure that we're running business pretty well, that we're hired up in a good place before I start taking time off. On your website, you describe yourself as a pastry chef by day and a culinary chef by night. Food really is at the center of who you are, right? It is. My parents, they opened New Saigon restaurant in 1980s, kind of late, and I grew up at the restaurant. The restaurant was more of a home than our own home. We spent so much time there, and so that was where all of our childhood memories were. And my mom is an incredible chef, and I learned a lot of that from my mom, my grandma, but especially my mom. What do you think it is about great food that connects people? I think I would like to say that food is a universal language. Right. And part of cooking, I love all different cultures of food. I don't just cook Vietnamese food. I'm probably the one in the family that reaches out to a lot of different cuisines from different cultures and really, apply all my research and recipe development to just what I've learned and watching a lot of TV. But I like to say it's a universal language because people gather with really good food. Mm-hmm. And when I was studying in France for pastry arts, and it didn't matter what language we spoke. It just mattered that we were surrounded by really good food, and we laugh about our broken English, our broken French, our broken Spanish, and it still just brings people together. That's why it's the universal language, I'd say. I want to talk about your French experience here in just a little bit, but going back to your mom, you mentioned that there was a simple chicken and rice dish that she made that's your favorite meal, and I imagine it's because it's delicious, but there's also a lot of amazing memories tied to that. Talk a little bit more about how your mom influenced your decision to go into the culinary arts. Well, I'd have to say that food always just had a very special spot for us. And, that chicken and rice dish, it's so simple, but it's comfort food, right? And my mom, I mean, a lot of us, my parents always just encouraged us to do other things rather than get into the food industry. They didn't want us to be working hard like them. It's a grind. Yeah, it's a grind. And I think eventually I just liked baking at home because no one really baked. We just bought those easy Betty Crocker type of mixes and made little pound cakes and cupcakes. But cream puffs, right? Cream puffs were something that my parents loved. and I wanted to practice how to make cream puffs. And eventually I started kind of baking a lot. And I think my senior year was when I told my counselor and my teacher, I'm like, I know I was going for chiropractic for these past 3 years, but I don't want to do that anymore. I want to go Johnson Wales University, and I want to learn pastry arts. And my parents were pretty ecstatic about it because it was just something so natural for us to just still maintain in the food industry. But my counselor was just like, we only have 2 months left before you graduate. What are you thinking?
I mean, you have to follow your passion, though. I mean, if there's that little voice that's inside of you that says, here's my purpose, here's my passion, and you owe it to yourself to follow that path, I imagine.
Yeah. And, but my mom, there's a lot of things that we don't agree with when it comes to parenting. Our parents, we just don't listen to our parents.
Right.
But for my mom, when she has any input or feedback or criticism and feedback about any thing about cooking, I will never question that.
No, she's
never.
she's the authority. Huh?
She's the boss.
You mentioned you studied baking and pastry arts. Talk about moving to France. What was that experience like, and what did you learn there?
Oh, I mean, growing up in an Asian family, we have a lot of. It's very strict. Family just wants you to mainly work and focus on school. It was very little social and playtime growing up, but that really played a huge role in my work ethic. However,
it's a good foundation.
Yeah, it is. And that's why I don't mind working really hard. But going to France, that was my opportunity for freedom. Okay. And that's where I really learned how to just spread my wings and fly. And I got to travel. I didn't speak much French, but when it came to the French language in the kitchen, it came very natural.
So you fit in that environment very quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to move to an apartment down the street from your parents and feel free, but to move to an entire country, immerse yourself in a new culture, and develop a skill that is highly competitive. I mean, wow, that's impressive.
It was incredible. And I did my internship in Biarritz, France, which is the beach country of France. They surfed a lot there. And that's where, I was in a kitchen full of just men. Men really rule the kitchen in France. You have a great population of women chefs as well, but majority of the kitchens that you see is just really men driven. And I got to really work with all these incredible chefs, and they took me under their wing, and no one ever hesitated to share a recipe, and it was a really great experience.
So would you say that you had struggles as a woman proving yourself or being maybe judged or underestimated because you were a woman in that environment, or did you find it welcoming and open?
Very welcoming and open.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it was, I almost made a decision, and I contemplated that I would just live in France.
Yeah.
I had to come home.
Is there maybe down the line after, Bon and Butter has become the go-to in the world? Move to France, maybe?
Probably not. I'll probably keep it as a traveling destination.
Okay. So you go through your training, you have this wealth of knowledge from growing up and from your family, now tied to this French culinary skill. How do you connect the traditions of Asian baking with the expertise you picked up during your training?
Well, I would say Vietnamese and French just kind of naturally come together because we were colonized by the French for quite some time.
Okay.
And a lot of that French influence did really
permeated the culture.
It did.
Okay.
It did. And when I went to France, I would tell people that I'm Vietnamese, and they're just like, "Oh my gosh, you're Vietnamese!" They love that. I think there's that sense of bond between two cultures, and the banh mi sandwich alone, which people kind of think the word bun is banh mi, but bun is like what you said at the very beginning. It's a variety of pastries. It's anything. It's our adjective to put in front of any type of description to kind of give people a heads up, hey, I'm talking about a pastry. Hey, I'm talking about bread. But the banh mi sandwich has a high influence from the French. And, even the cream puff, a lot of people love the cream puff, and they, in French, they call it pâte à choux. But in Vietnamese, we call it the choux crème.
Okay.
We still take on the words of the French language, which has a huge effect on our culture.
Talk a little bit about your team. It looks like you're surrounded by a lot of talent.
I am. And so I have my youngest sister, Kat, who works front of the house. I have my back of the house manager, Rachel, who I've worked with since I was her manager at Whole Foods.
Wow.
And so she was an incredible cake decorator. And I always tell people I don't like hiring in friends because it's just really hard. Friends in business just don't work.
Right, because you sometimes have to give constructive criticism. Sometimes you have to come down on people that are working for you, and you don't want to mess up that dynamic,
Exactly. And it worked fine with a lot of my team members that I've worked with from Whole Foods, just because simply I was their manager before I was ever their friend. Mm-hmm. And so they know how I work. They know that I will get into game mode and there's no personal, offenses in anything. Business is business, personal is personal. But my other team members were from the previous business, Third Culture Bakery. Mm-hmm. 2 of them are which I trained into bakers at this point. And then the rest of my team are interns.
Okay.
And they're from Auguste Escoffier School of Culinary Arts.
Yeah.
And part of how that connection and that networking happened was because I was a pastry chef instructor at Auguste Escoffier. And the students that I brought on were previously my students.
Yeah, I have to admit, I went and creeped on your Instagram a couple days ago, and I noticed that you were instructing and teaching. How does it feel to kind of inspire the next generation of culinary talent?
It feels really good. I feel like I'm doing a service to people. I'm a giver. I mean, in the Asian culture, you're very private with your recipes, with your techniques. Everyone is in a competition. Mm-hmm. For me, I've never really been secretive about that. I feel like sharing is one of the biggest services I could do. Eventually one day when I pass away, I'm just going to feel like at least I did my part and left an imprint on many, many people.
A legacy.
And that legacy, for my family, legacy means within the family. For me, legacy is everywhere. Yeah, I very much like to be community involved, which really plays a huge role in mentoring my students and hoping that I played a huge role for their success.
Which of your offerings are you most proud of? Is there a particular recipe that really excites you?
Definitely the crepe cake.
Okay.
Aside from the pâte à choux, like the cream puffs, that's just like a family favorite. But I'm very prideful about the crepe cake because it's a labor of love for sure. But part of it is because it connected every experience that's led to this point. When I was in France, I got a little lost in Paris. That's the best way to experience, right? Just still do the research. But I ran into this bakery. I wish I remembered the name. I wish I remembered the chef. It was just over a decade ago. But I went in and I saw a milk crepe cake and I was like, oh, that's a very beautiful cake that you have there. And he's like, oh, I'm making some in the back. And I was telling him that I was a pastry student, and he just brought me in the back and was just like, I'll show you how to do it. And he gave me the recipe, and I brought that back here to Denver. And I feel like the milk crepe cake was starting to trend in New York and California already. I definitely started selling it at the New Saigon Bakery in Delhi at my family's bakery, and it just took off really well, which really gave us recognition for Food Network. So we had a little pilot episode showing the crepe cake and our banh mi sandwiches, and so it created all these beautiful opportunities.
When you see a creation like that, is it like if you see a musician, they can play by ear. Mm-hmm. They hear a song and they can play by ear. When you see a creation like that in your mind, can you create that before you even get in the kitchen?
Oh yeah.
You kind of know the texture, the consistency, all of the components that go into it before you even start. It's like an orchestra almost. Yeah,
you just kind of know to break apart the elements.
Okay.
And I feel like that with any food that I eat, or if there's a favorite dish that I like, I just naturally start to pick it apart. And I'm like, okay, there's got to be a little cinnamon in there. There's got to be a little nutmeg.
Yeah.
And if it's savory, which is the culinary chef by night,
yeah,
I'll see a dish that I really like and I'll break it apart and try to remake it at home and create my own recipe out of it.
My team was very grateful to be invited to the soft opening that you had, and I was really impressed not only with your food offerings, but you have an incredible selection of coffees and teas, and I tried my first milk tea.
Oh, nice.
I know you have a great selection of Vietnamese coffee as well. What make those recipes stand out for you?
So the Vietnamese coffee stands out the most because we have a lot of coffee shops in that Colfax area, and the Vietnamese coffee is our specialty just because it's a cultural-based thing.
Right.
But, when it comes to the milk tea and we have a selection of like oolong, jasmine green, we have black tea and green tea, and it just gives people that variety. And milk tea is just such a huge, I think it started probably in Taiwan mainly, but that's where the boba tea trend is coming in, and we kind of have to touch base and try to make everyone happy, and try to have as much variety as we can so that we can fit the needs of everybody to really have that group gathering and have people come to like the space and just really enjoy their favorite drinks and their favorite pastries.
Your core values include, growing with the community by building trust and relationships with your customers and neighbors. What drew you to Aurora, and talk a little bit about what this community means to you?
Well, Aurora, I feel like Colfax was already developing, and to hear that the location that we're in is the next art district,
right?
That it really inspired me, because we're all kind of artists of our own trade, and it really drew that attention. And when I heard that Third Culture Bakery was closing, I had a friend call me, and she's like, "It's a turnkey bakery.
Right.
You've been working." It was no secret that I had been trying to start my own business for over 5 years now. So that 5-year plan finally came to fruition when the space freed up, and it was so exciting.
Do you feel like the community here kind of appreciates your level of artistry and the skill that your team brings to this new location?
I do. I think it's a community-based thing. I think they support the business alone, the culture of that we have created, and also I think people appreciate that we have a space for them to sit and work and just really be around like really friendly customer service. And my team are just amazing people who can't just be mean with anybody, that they have the best customer service. And we like to treat our space as like a place where we're hosting people. Yeah,
one of the things that hits me about the development on East Colfax, near the Colfax Canvas area and near your location, is that it's development, it's growth, but it's still respectful of the neighborhood. It's respectful of the cultures that encompass Aurora. Aurora being the most diverse city in the state of Colorado. They've really done a good job of enhancing the community without gentrification, without these negative aspects that also sometimes come with growth.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I feel like it's more of treating everyone as a human being and just being a part of that culture rather than taking away culture. I think what we're on, what Colfax and Aurora is heading to, is just like a collaboration of cultures.
There are a lot of baking reality shows out there and just cooking reality shows in general. Do you watch them first?
I do.
When you see them, do you think, I could do that so much better?
I do.
Yeah.
And I've applied to some, and in like the past year I did apply to a reality cooking show that I did get recruited in to be part of like the cast. And so the casting director, we were in touch, and I went to Vegas and everything for that. However, an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, they just kind of sent a group of us home, and I was one of those people.
They're lost.
Yes.
What do you see on those shows that really annoy you as a chef? There's got to be pet peeves that come out of those shows for you.
Oh man, I would say just the teamwork aspect of it. I think I think it's a stereotype or a stigma that chefs can be very egocentric, but I think that there's ways of being egocentric with certain things that you're amazing with, but I don't think you should be big-headed about it. I think teamwork in the end is really useful, and that's like my biggest pet peeve, when people just like are, I'm this, I'm that, and I don't need anybody. In the reality world of everything, you need people to help you.
The manufactured drama and stuff like that. Where does your love of fishing come from?
Well, my partner, Colin, he... when I met him 3 years ago, we knew each other through Whole Foods, but when we started dating and, boyfriend, girlfriend at 3 years, he took me on so many adventures, because all I know is work.
Yeah.
I'm very just career oriented, and he's just he's a quality of life person. And so he took me fishing, and I love fishing. I mean, I caught my first walleye ever 2 years ago. And it was like the last walleye of the season, because I probably did not catch anything more after that.
Okay.
But then fishing, and we go to different lakes, like Aurora Reservoir. We go up in Breckenridge and everything. But caught a ton of trout.
Okay.
But we always catch and release. I think it's just the fun of it, really.
Right.
Yeah.
So is that your big catch story, the walleye?
Yes, that's my big catch story.
All right, you're gonna have to develop like a really like one of the ones the old men tell at the at the bar that you see on every TV show.
It was huge, and I was just looking at it, and I don't know how to take the bait off. Like I was just like, someone do it, because the teeth is sharp on those walleyes.
That's when it gets complicated. Your bucket list includes visiting all 50 states. How far have you gotten?
Oh, not far at all. I think I've just been like on the West Coast side a lot.
Okay.
I've been to New Orleans, Florida, but never really got to explore it as much as I wish I would.
Yeah.
And so one of my biggest bucket lists is to revisit all those places that I've, because sometimes it was just like stop in places, but I really want to explore like the main parts of like the cities.
Do you have any favorites that you've explored so far?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I don't have like one that really has stood out to me necessarily, but I don't think it's because I'm actually giving it the time that it needs, because I don't vacation much because of working in the family business.
And you probably won't be for a while. You'll be baking that time.
What was I thinking?
You say your favorite dessert is anything chocolate, but I want you to get a little more specific. If you're allowed one final dessert, what are you having?
Ooh, I would have a bittersweet chocolate mousse cake. Yes.
Have you had an experience like that you can draw on specifically, or is this something you would make yourself because you want to make sure it's done right? You would do it yourself.
Yes, I think the amount of mousse versus cake, it kind of depends on the person, whether people are more cake people or mousse people.
Oh, are you a cake person or are you a mousse person?
I'm a mousse person.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a debate here. There was a ratio. I have to do some research.
Ratio.
So what is the ideal ratio?
In France, there's a lot more mousse than cake. So you get a very like small layer of cake, but then like a nice thick layer of mousse. I noticed that in the US, we just have like more like an equal amount of filling to cake ratio.
Okay.
But I'm more French.
You can change that.
Yeah.
That could be one of your lasting legacies to make sure we're doing that right.
Exactly.
You're incredibly impressive, Thoa Nguyen. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm really excited for what you're doing at Bond and Butter Bakery Cafe at 9935 East Colfax Avenue. Here at Visit Aurora, we wish you all the best, and we're here to help you any way we can.
Thank you so much, and it's been a pleasure.
Feel free to visit them online at bondandbutter.com. You can also check out their Instagram at Bond Butter Bakery Cafe. Hey, thank you for listening to the Gateway to the Rockies podcast. Visit Aurora is the official destination marketing organization for the city of Aurora, Colorado, and acts as the primary liaison between meeting planners and hotel partners. As Aurora's Convention and Visitors Bureau, Visit Aurora's mission is grounded in showcasing Aurora as a premier destination for meetings, business, and leisure travel. Visit Aurora represents more than 75 plus hotel properties with 13,500 plus guest rooms and more than 1 million square feet of meeting space, including Colorado's largest resort, Gaylord Rockies Resort and Convention Center. As Colorado's third largest city, Aurora is located minutes away from Denver International Airport and showcases mountain views, memorable meeting spaces, and 250 plus international eateries that offer a unique experience for each and every visitor. As the gateway to the Rockies, Visit Aurora's role in the local community goes beyond marketing the city as a destination. The Visit Aurora team is here to assist you with your Colorado visit, from facilitating your meeting, event, or convention to helping you discover local flavor and attractions. Go beyond the boardroom in Aurora, Colorado. For more, visit us at visitaurora.com.